It's 1946. The National Basketball Association was just created, and you're at the first game ever. Everyone on the court is white and wearing their team jerseys, and everyone's wearing shorts the size of modern-day men's underwear. That doesn't sound like the NBA, right? The NBA has been around for 74 years and has changed in so many ways. Today, I will talk about how the NBA is one of the best leagues in the world. First, I will talk about how the NBA was created. Second, I will talk about how the NBA has grown and developed. And third, I will talk about the NBA today. Now we'll go back in time to 1946. The NBA, otherwise known as the BBA, has just been created. The National Basketball Association, now watched in almost every country, had a very humble beginning. The NBA had a competition with the NBL. Well, the BBA had a competition with the NBL. The NBL had a 9-year head start and had already been created. In the book, The Rise of the National Basketball Association by David George Surdam, he explains that the NBL had already reserved some of the bigger venues and had access to more fans already. He also adds that the NBL got more talented players, such as all-time great George Mikan. George Mikan was one of the greatest of all at that time, and he played for the Minneapolis Lakers. The NBL and the BBA had to fight for fans and for players, such as George Mikan, of course. But after a 3-year battle for fans and players, they finally came to an agreement to become the NBA. It took all the way till 1950 for the NBA to have their full season because of the merger was not as smooth as they thought it would be. There were the partners that came from the NBL that created the NBA. Their power and influence for their ideas weren't showing, and their power slowly started to fade, and the BBA started to focus more on their own history and less on the NBL. So this slowly took away the NBL's history and created a more BBA past and made the BBA seem as the whole league the entire time. Also, the big city teams were also wealthier and took more of the revenue, so the NBL couldn't really compete. Since the NBA now was created, it took until 1950 to have their full season, which was a long time. Now we will shift to the 1990s, where the NBA really grew and with their fans globally. The NBA's growth in the 1990s was unmatched compared to other leagues. This was because of the Chicago Bulls dynasty and Michael Jordan. In an article by Ethan Sherwood Strauss breaking down Michael Jordan's legacy and impact on the game, he speaks about how Michael Jordan was the face of the NBA, and Michael Jordan's dominant Bulls were fan favorites. People from all over the world watched and tuned into his games, and this created a bigger market for the NBA to grow. Also, new dynasties started to form, such as the 2000 Los Angeles Lakers, which created a greater worldwide fan base. And the same story happens again with Kobe Bryant. So far, I've talked about the creation of the NBA, its early struggles with the NBL and BBA merger, and how it wasn't that smooth. I've also talked about how the NBA's global market with Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan was great, and he created a great fan base for the NBA. But now, we will switch towards the NBA today. The NBA today is one of the biggest markets, as called by Ben Cohen in his article he titled, "The NBA's billion-dollar market." He also talks about how the NBA has access to many fans through their TV contracts, such with ABC, ESPN, and my favorite, TNT. This creates more revenue from streaming channels and all this, and they have access to, if the fan has access to those channels, he has access to the NBA. This created a great revenue for the NBA from 1990, where the revenue was around 70 million for TV contracts, to now 94 million. Also, it talks about salary caps and salaries, how they have exponentially grown since 1950. In 1950, the salaries were 5,000, and the salary caps were around $55,000, where now the average salary is 7.7 mil and the caps are in the $100 million ranges. With big contracts happening in the summer, such as LeBron getting $40 million contracts, and then players averaging 7.7. NBA is one of the biggest markets with money, with players getting a lot of the money from the NBA's revenue. Today, I have taught you about the creation of the NBA and the development and also the past. The today. First, I spoke about the NBL and BBA merger. Secondly, I talked about the development and how Michael Jordan's Chicago Bulls created a global market for the NBA. And last, I finished off with NBA's continuing revenue from TV broadcast and how players get huge contracts and the average salaries being as high as $7 million. Today, you've learned so much about the NBA and how it's one of the best sports leagues in the world. And I hope today I got you a greater knowledge of the NBA and how big of a market it truly is. Thank you.